Alex Sheppard that was only about 10 feet away from Ashli Babbitt when she was killed, actually murdered. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really pleased to report that Alex Sheppard is out. He's free. This is one of the true victims. You know, we don't want to do victimhood and all this stuff, but Alex is definitely a victim because he was incarcerated for, is that 6 months, correct, Alex?
Correct.
Yeah, so he was incarcerated for 6 months. He's going to tell us his story. And take it away, Alex. Let's hear about what happened in January 6, 2021 to you.
Yeah, so great to be on the show. I was telling I was telling Mustang that I watched quite a bit of his coverage outside the Capitol shortly after January 6th, when we were all wondering what was going on with the military installation of an inauguration where no American citizens were allowed to be there. But basically, yeah, I just got out of prison this past Thursday.
It was Thursday.
About a week ago.
Let me ask you a quick question. How
yeah.
long from J6, January 6th, to you being charged and arrested? How long, what time period was that?
Yeah, so that was like a couple months, month and a
Okay.
half, maybe. The FBI came to my door on January 19th, and they said, hey, we have a list of questions for you. And I said, I don't want to answer any questions without a lawyer. I said, but it looks like Antifa was strongly involved in this January 6th stuff. And I told them right then, and that's documented. And then they gave me their card. I said, when do I need to get back to you guys by? They said, oh, it's just an open complaint. No big deal if you don't get back to us. So next thing you know, a couple months later, I'm getting on a flight to Colorado, going to see some people out in Colorado, and they had a sting operation for me set up at the airport. The moment I walked in the sliding doors, there were about 10 people around me. They said, Alex, and it was the FBI agent who questioned me. He said, remember me? And I said, am I under arrest? They all took a step towards me. He said, yes, you're under arrest. I was one of the lucky January 6ers for a very long time because they only kept me in jail for a day. And I know a lot of people have been stuck in the gulag awaiting trial. I was out pre-trial for maybe 2 years. And then finally, they took me to trial in January of 2023. And I was finally sentenced that summer. And I was told to report to prison on November 2nd, 2023. So I was in prison from November 2nd to May 2nd of this year.
So they had 10 people at the airport to arrest you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They arrested
you needed 10 people because you were such a dangerous felon.
Well, get this. When I showed up to prison, the DOJ emailed my lawyers saying I'd be reporting to the satellite camp at USP Thompson, which is a prison out in Thompson, Illinois. There were other inmates there who were from Illinois who said, we'd never heard of Thompson, Illinois, middle of nowhere. But the prison was a supermax prison less than a year ago. Obama wanted to send Gitmo detainees to this place back in the day. And so that's where I went. And I said, I'm here to report to the satellite camp. And they said, no, you're not. You're going in the prison. And it took me 20 days of harassing the people, sending the emails out, asking the BOP, asking the different COs there, the corrections officers. And finally, after 20 days into my sentence, I get a call down from my cell, Sheppard, and I walk down and he goes, hey, I'm from Special Investigations. I'm the guy who listens to all your calls and reads all your emails. He said, you can bitch and complain about this place all you want, but you're not going to a effing satellite camp ever. And I said, well, why is that? The DOJ said I'm going to a satellite camp. And he said, well, it's due to the nature of your charges. I said, my charges were all nonviolent. The felony I'm in here for is obstruction. I said, what could that possibly mean? He said, let me put it simply for you. You're a terrorist. And, you know, I argued that. And he said, no, I hear you. He said, but I have a report right here from the Counterterrorism Task Force in the DOJ about you. And that right there makes you a terrorist. The two types of people who are never allowed at a satellite camp are the sex offenders, child molesters, and terrorists. So although I should have gone to the camp, I went to the prison instead.
What was this guy's name?
Uh, the guy that I spoke with,
Yeah. Do you know it?
yeah, I don't know his exact name. He worked for the prison and he was in the special investigations department of the prison, which are the people who handle, they handled real investigations. Like there was a gun that was found on the compound my last week there, so they locked us all in our cells, no movement, while special investigations worked on that. And I was kind of thinking, maybe if they spent more time actually looking into crime at the prison and less time bothering the terrorists. Like they held our mail for months on end too, and our emails took weeks to send and receive, all because of this terrorist label that the DOJ gave us.
And he didn't need to go down and tell you that, right? He's monitoring you. He just came down and just basically make you feel hopeless, right? I mean, he didn't have to go down and tell you, he thinks you're a terrorist, correct?
Well, he didn't think I was a terrorist. He said, "Dude, I understand where you're coming from. It's not me who you need to convince. The issue is I got a report here from the Department of Justice Counterterrorism Task Force about you, and that there classifies you as a terrorist."
Wow. Wow. Man, isn't it amazing? Biden bragging about the amount of years that he's putting people in prison. I mean, it's prison, it's not jail. Jail, you
Right.
get held. Prison, you're like, 6 months, that type of thing. But it's absolutely amazing how our government has been weaponized against us more so than I'm sure it's been that way before, but it just seems so obvious today, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, look back at the Patriot Act passed
Yep.
by George W. Bush. I
That's
mean,
when it
that is now
started.
being used against patriots. And one could argue that maybe it was intended to be used that way the entire time. So yeah, and look at Biden's State of the Union speech this last time. He starts off the speech. I was in prison watching it, and I mean, we're all laughing, and I'm in with real criminals, and the real criminals and even the cops who work there all told me, we know that you guys are just being persecuted. Everyone knew that, but
Wow.
we're watching the State of the Union, and he compares January 6th to the Civil War again. He says we're segregationists, and he also compares us to Nazis. He says it's like when we fought Nazi Germany.
Mm.
And they say that Trump couldn't get over the 2020 election, but Joe Biden hasn't gotten it over it either, and neither has the FBI or the DOJ, because they're still trying to convince people to say that Biden won the election.
I know.
And that's why they came after me so hard, was not because of my conduct on January 6th. Uh, if I were anyone else who did what I did, I would have gotten a misdemeanor. But because I was outspoken on Twitter and on podcasts and shows like these about evidence of fraud in the election, and then I was outspoken about Antifa's involvement and the FBI's involvement and whoever Ray Epps is with, his involvement in trapping
He
Americans
was,
on January
yeah, Ray
6th.
Epps was connected to the FBI before January 6th, as you probably already know. Let me ask you a question. What exactly did you do at the Capitol that they felt they could arrest you? Did you go inside? Were you outside? Were you pushing cops, or what was going on?
Yeah, so I got there at about 6 a.m. and I walked as soon as I got there. I mean, it was a freezing cold day. There was a miles long line wrapped around the Washington Monument just to get in to see Trump speak. Uh, Now, the DC mayor gave us like 8 porta potties for like a million.
Bowser.
Yeah, yep. Gave us like 8 porta potties for a million people. So I go down, I finally find one. I'm going around meeting so many great patriots who drove up from all over. I drove up by myself from Ohio. I met a family from Texas, one from California, and people from all over the place. And I go to the porta potties, and I get out and I realize there's a big gap in the line, miles long ahead, and people like aren't paying attention in line. So I admit I cut some people in line, and because I wanted to get in to see Trump speak, So I get in line, and then we're going, and we get to the part where there's the metal barriers that loop around like like a snake, and I forget what those are called, but we're waiting there, and then some guys I met earlier said, "Hey, come on up." They got me a better spot in line, And next thing you know, I go past the metal detectors, past Secret Service and everything, and I get in to see President Trump speak. I was like fifth or sixth row that day.
You're talking.
Uh,
You're talking about no January 6th, right? The ellipse, right?
right.
That's so weird because I went there, of course. I didn't go through any security or anything. I just walked up on the crowd and got myself in there and then got trapped by everybody else coming. I didn't have the same experience you had. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there was a big crowd and people were all outside, but I managed to get in inside. There was one little spot where people were able, I mean, when I got there at 6 a.m., the people who parked behind me and in front of me both said, "Yeah, we're setting up chairs on the hill over here. There's no way we're going to be able to get in that far."
Oh, so you
But
were right. You were right up close to President Trump during it.
I was like fifth or sixth row for the
Oh,
speech.
wow. Now I understand why we had different experiences. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I bring all that up to say, the DOJ ends up saying, and still to this day, the media is reporting because the DOJ said I was one of the first Capitol rioters to enter the building, but we all know that the building was breached during Trump's speech, and I was there and I stayed for the whole speech, and then when the speech ended, I walked around, I met some more people, and then I walked down to the Capitol, and we're outside the Capitol. I got women, children, elderly people all around me. And it seems like they're just throwing like tear gas grenades into the crowd for no reason. And
Let me interject for you one second
yeah,
on the tear gas and everything.
yeah,
I didn't know this, and maybe it's naivete, but they were breaching the Capitol before the speech was over.
that's correct. And I've posted videos of men in all black, and I'll send you the tweet. It went pretty viral. Men in all black who are clearly trained professionals breaking windows and breaking into the Capitol.
Wow, you're schooling me right now. I didn't know that until that's amazing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll
You're
send
at
you
the
the
tear gas.
video.
Go ahead.
But yeah, so they're throwing tear gas and stuff, and everyone around me is peaceful from what I see. And then it turns out the scaffolding on the corner of the building like tears down. It was almost like it was kind of surreal. The wallpaper just kind of tore down, and then a staircase opened up, and someone said we're going in, and I walked up the staircase, and then I walked up the Capitol stairs, and I walked right into the Capitol.
Did you
Now,
go through the window or how'd you get in?
a wide open door.
A wide open. Was the Capitol Police inviting you in at all?
So I didn't necessarily have the experience of a Capitol police officer waving me in, but
I've seen the video on this.
there are people who that happened to.
Yeah, and they
Um,
caught that on video too. So I was just interested. So okay, so you went in the building. Now go ahead.
yeah, so they don't have any video of that scaffolding being torn open or me going up the stairs of the scaffolding. So in my trial, they're saying he climbed up the scaffolding. And even in my sentencing after trial, when that was disputed, DOJ is saying he climbed up the scaffolding to no, I walked upstairs, I walked up more stairs, and then I went into a door. And then, we walked in the Capitol. We end up getting outside the House chamber. We're all walking through the Capitol. And
Oh, so you got as close as the House chamber. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, so we got outside the House chamber. Now initially, I'm there with Ashli Babbitt and a couple other people, Taylor Hanson and some others who are in there. And there's a video of me offering this Capitol police officer. The cameraman on this video kind of pointed out he looked like maybe he got tear gas in his eyes or something. There's tear gas that they were throwing at people. So the video cuts to me. I offer this guy a water bottle, the Capitol police officer. I say, "Hey, you need a water or anything?" Uh, and that video never made it in trial. I didn't even find the video until I was scrolling through Twitter after my trial, and I found this video. I said, "I'm in this video," and Ashli Babbitt was in the video. She was trying to talk to police officers, and I don't know exactly what she was saying, but it didn't look like she was trying to harm them in any way, of course.
Oh no. Yeah.
And so, anyways, then obviously, what happened. I was right next to John Sullivan from Antifa, who is the leader of an organization called Insurgents USA, I believe from Utah. He's already facing felony rioting charges in Utah. He was the guy who filmed the footage of Ashli Babbitt being shot and killed, and he
Wow.
sold the footage to CNN ABC, Australian Broadcasting, and British Broadcasting. He made 70 grand off that footage. And then, the DOJ ended up having to arrest John Sullivan too. And he ended up violating like 4 or 5 of his release conditions. The DOJ even says in their arrest document of him in their indictment, they say he's on film breaking a window and saying, "Oh shit, I broke a window." So
how many, do you know how many officers they needed to do to arrest him? Do you know any of that?
Well, I don't know that, but what I do know is even though he violated all his release conditions, they still have not thrown him in prison. He still, to my knowledge, has no trial date. So it's all a cover up. The guy who adopted him, I did a video on this. The guy who adopted him, Kevin Sullivan, he was a 4-star Air Force general. Who was forced to leave the Air Force because he got caught selling nuclear warheads to Taiwan with about 16 or 17 others.
No, when you said adopted, it was the father of this guy?
Yeah, so and he still works as a contractor for the Department of Defense for the Pentagon.
Mhm.
And so, these Pentagon connections, the way I see it, are stopping this Antifa kid from being held accountable to the same standard that we're being held accountable. But to finish the story about January 6th, they shot Ashli Babbitt. I was like a row back when it happened, and then they said, "Everyone clear the way. We're going to bring in a medic. We're going to bring a medic." And they didn't bring in a medic. Instead, they brought in a ton of officers and dudes with riot shields to get everyone out of the building. I was
Wow.
escorted out of the building, and then I went home.
So you're
And
saying they let her die? Well, let's stick with
yeah,
Ashli
yeah.
Babbitt right now.
So
You're saying they were going to get a medic. Not too many people have witnessed this or reported
right,
like you have. She was
right,
laying on the ground, shot, right,
yeah,
with the guy that was on the other side of the door holding a gun and just fired, waited like
yeah,
what, 10 or 15, 10 seconds, and then fired at her, killed
yeah.
her.
No warning.
No warning. Right. And he's off scot-free too. He's doing fine.
No
He got a
investigate. There was
promotion
never even
for
an
killing her. Go ahead.
investigation into Michael Berg for shooting her. Yeah.
Say
So
that
and yeah,
again.
then they shot her, and they said, "We're calling in a medic. We're bringing in a medic, and clear the way. We're bringing a medic." And no medic ever came. And Aaron Babbitt is on. He was on Greg Kelly's show, I believe, talking about how everyone knows when you get shot. I mean, they're both former military, right? You get shot, you elevate the wound. He said he saw video because he's doing lawsuits and they're suing for her death. He saw video. He said it looked like they were draining a deer with her. So yeah,
It's just so shocking what's going on and what you witnessed. So okay, so you saw Ashli Babbitt get murdered by I don't know, what was his position, the guy that shot her? Do you know? I don't even know what his position
Lieutenant
was. He was
Lieutenant
a
Michael
lieutenant,
Berg. Yeah.
Capitol Police.
Hmm.
Okay, because he was plainclothes, wasn't he, in a suit?
Yeah, he was in a suit.
Okay, all right. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean that's basically the story of what
Well,
happened.
what happened to you after she got shot? And they brought police and they just pushed you out of the building, out of the Capitol?
Yeah, I mean it was kind of a blur, but I saw it again in my trial because I took this to trial in DC, which we can talk about. But basically, it showed a Capitol Police officer escorting me out of the building. But I remember, there were full SWAT team that came in to get everyone out. But yeah, they didn't care about saving her life whatsoever.
Wow, they murdered her and let her die, which is just, for me, what was amazing was it. Here you go. And I'm going to use color of skin because there's so many outbreaks of protests around the BLM thing. They shoot a white woman, murder her. She's not a threat. She's unwarned, and they just ignore it. Everybody ignores it, and of course it was getting taken out by platforms. That's, we're going to be on a platform. That's what we're talking about. But the fact that there was no protest, I was kind of upset with the public, really, when people should have been protesting in the streets and that's what I'm trying to do now, is I'm trying to get people, fly their flag upside down, get people out in the streets and really start to activate rather than watching. And I was really disappointed how no one protested with signs and came for like weeks, the killing of her, you know what I mean? The murder of her. That was disappointing to me and how far it passed. But okay, so you got pushed out, and then
Well,
what?
so just to your point, that was the whole point of January 6th and them coming after the January 6th protesters so hard, because they knew if they did that, then everyone would be scared to be arrested, be thrown in prison, and be given that same treatment that I and many others have received. Because then they go and they indict Trump. And I've been to a protest down in Florida where we protested the indictment of Donald Trump, and now he's been indicted a few other times. I was in prison for some of those, but those indictments are a travesty, and we're becoming a third world country.
Yes,
He's trying to throw his political opponent in prison, and he threw everyone who protested his election in prison, and he won't stop talking about how terrible we are. But that's what dictators do.
exactly.
But when I went to Florida to protest, immediately first conversation I overheard when I go there is there's an attractive young lady talking to people. We're outside the Florida courthouse, right? And she's going around and she's talking with a guy, and she says, "Hey, you got any plans to try and get in the courthouse?" So she was there to try to set people up, get people to go inside the courthouse. And so then he went around warning everyone, "Hey, watch out for that lady. She's trying to, start another January 6th. She's trying to get people to walk into a federal building and have something like that happen again." So I can't really blame people for being very mindful of that. But it is a shame what's been allowed to happen to Ashli Babbitt, to Roseanne Boylan,
To
to
you,
the others they killed, and to the other January 6th people.
right? No, it's shocking because it's so obvious. They send 10 agents to arrest you at an airport. They could have picked you up anywhere. They sent 2 agents to my house on the 9th of January, interviewing my parents. They knew where I was, facial recognition, and then they knew my finances. They knew I was paying for a hotel, Holiday Inn or something like that, close by, 5 minutes away from the Capitol. But they chose to go to my parents' house, and at that time, I had no fear, because I didn't know innocent people like you and other people that went to prison. I didn't know that there was a chance I could go to prison because I didn't do anything wrong. I was fortunate. I didn't go to the Washington Monument. I went down another street. I didn't even go down Pennsylvania Avenue. I've said that in the past. It wasn't Pennsylvania Avenue. So I kind of missed. I went offshoot to the hotel and didn't go near the Capitol. And I saw smoke and everything, but I didn't know what was going on. So therefore, I didn't serve time with you. But who knows? Right now, we're doing this interview, and the way things are going, who knows what's going to happen with the election? We could be getting arrested. You know what I mean? It could be like this. Open the door.
Right, right.
It's just, you never
Well,
know what's going to
it
happen in
wasn't
this
just
day and age
that.
with this tyranny.
It wasn't just that. They also, when they arrested me, they raided my parents' house. So,
What?
yeah, so they had, they shut down their condo complex, police cars. They had, I mean, probably the dozen or so people there. They had the ATF, counterterrorism unit, FBI, and sheriff's department, and they raided my parents' house, questioned them for 3 hours separately, asking questions like, is he a Proud Boy, or does he ever talk about QAnon? And
Wow.
yeah, all this stuff. And yeah, so it wasn't just the 10 people arresting me. They stormed my parents' house in the middle of a Friday, and searched every corner. They got my laptop. They got my laptop in my luggage, which they didn't have a warrant for. And then they got my phone when I was sitting in the cop car with the feds. They said, "Well, why don't you just unlock your phone for us?" They said, "Do you want to call your parents, let them know that we're about to raid their place?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to call them." They said, "Okay, unlock your phone for us." I said, "Well, can't I just use one of your guys' phones?" They said, "Well, we already have a warrant for your phone, so you may as well unlock it for us." And I said, "I'd rather not." So they didn't get any warning when they raided their house because I didn't want to unlock my phone. Now they got into
Just a quick question. Was it an
yeah,
iPhone?
yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard for them to decrypt those phones, and that's why they were trying
Well,
to
they
get a
got
fast
into
track
it.
on you.
They got into it anyways.
But yeah, they're
They
going to
took
get into it.
my
They were
laptop.
just trying to save work.
Sure. But anyways, so yeah, they raided my parents' home. They took my journals. They read through all my journals. In my planner, I wrote and I blocked off the January 6th rally. It was called the Stop the Steal rally,
I went
right?
there.
Right. So I write "Stop the Steal" in my planner, and then they're using that in trial, saying, "Look, he wanted to stop the certification of the election.
Wow.
That right there is proof." He said, "Stop the steal." I said, "I didn't name the protest."
Did you go to the protest?
Yeah, I mean that was the protest on January 6th. Was
No,
the
no, no.
stop?
Did you go to the Stop the Steal before January 6th?
No, no.
Okay, I actually did. It's
Okay.
amazing that you didn't even go and they were using that against you. Go ahead. I probably should not be talking about this. I'm waiting for
Well,
me
yeah,
to get
everyone who went to any of
investigated.
the protests is on
Go
a
ahead.
list. But yeah, I saw you guys all doing the Stop the Steal protests in DC and some other major cities. And that inspired me, knowing that the one protest that Trump was speaking at, I also wanted to see Trump speak. I'd never seen him speak live before. Now I have a few times, but I wanted to go see his speech, you know? So yeah, I went on January 6th.
Yeah, I was motivated to go to January 6th just because I just couldn't believe that he was truly elected, which we still don't believe. And there's been, many things that have proven that he really was placed in there.
Yeah.
And I, I just said, I've got to go. I just felt like, God was leading me to go. And I had no idea I was going to be there for 9 months. But, um, man, you really are an example of what they're doing with firsthand experience. It's amazing. What was it like, being in prison with other prisoners that actually did crimes?
Yeah, so the prison population there was about 40% offenders, pedophiles, child porn, things like that. That was about 40% of them. 45% or so at this particular one were illegal immigrants from Dominican Republic, Cuba, Mexico, El Salvador, Nigeria, Guyana, all over the world. Uh, that was about 45% of them. I actually got sick like a dozen times while I was in there because you got so many people from all over the world with all their diseases, and it's a sterile, it's all concrete. There was that, and then there were about 15% whites and blacks who were in there for, typically it was, they were in for all sorts of things. There were some people kidnapping, some arson, but most of
Wow.
them were in for guns and drugs.
And you were in there with all of them because you walked into the Capitol and witnessed Ashli Babbitt getting murdered, and you didn't do anything with the Capitol Police. You actually offered them water. And you had 10 agents arrest you, go after your parents. I'm summarizing. And how did you? So you were Did you befriended people in prison? It wasn't terrible. I mean, it's kind of a strange question to ask, but
Sure.
it wasn't like you weren't in fear for your life the whole time. It was pretty, I don't know how to use the word being in prison, but what was it? I mean, were you fearing for your life when you were in there?
Right. So the people that typically have problems at prison are the child molesters. Those are the people that, kind of have, if you say, less rights in prison. They got their own separate, like, chow hall from the other people. And,
Oh, they do that, huh?
yeah, they do things like that. I mean, the inmates kind of police it, but, yeah, so most of the white guys were in there for meth, and, there were even some of the guys in there for meth, it was their first sentence for meth, and, the minimum, and they take a plea deal, and the minimum they get is 10 years, and
Oh,
some of them were, like, straight up guys, so there were some decent people in prison, yeah, I mean, the white guys got along great with me. The Hispanics got along great with me because I'd speak Spanish to them. I took 6 years of it in school, but I can't understand. They speak so fast that I can't really understand Spanish when they speak it. But I could speak it to them some, and I got along with everyone. Low security. It was a supermax prison, but they were turning into a low security because they wanted to fill it up, and they did with 2,000 inmates. So the inmates were technically low security inmates. The medium and high security, the penitentiaries, those are where there's more violence and more of the, especially for the sex offenders and stuff. That's why I had so many sex offenders in my prison, was because the low security prisons are really the only ones they can be on without getting attacked by other inmates. But yeah, I
Um,
got along with everyone. I had a crew over there, and I stayed out of all the they call it the politics, right? I stayed out of all the politics. Um, and
you, you had a core group of people that were sticking together and having each other's back.
Yeah, and we didn't, we weren't like looking over our shoulder or anything. I was in a decent unit. I mean, yeah, they had fights and they had guns and drugs on the compound. A lot of people in there, had drugs and different things, but um that's prison for you. A lot of them had phones, and
That's
that was
prison for you. Guns,
that
knives,
yeah.
and phones.
Yeah, and they'd rent out their phones for 20 bucks an hour if anyone wanted, obviously I didn't do any of that. But I mean, that that's prison. It's its own world in there. And everyone seemed to have a hustle, whether it was people doing that or something else, because the jobs in prison, let's say I wanted to get some things off commissary because the food's not good at all, right? And luckily I had some money on my commissary, but so let's say I didn't and I wanted to get money on my commissary. The jobs on there are like $40 a month working 40 hours a week. And that's if you've been there a year. Really, it's like $20 a month if you want to work. And all the jobs there, the whole purpose of them is just to keep the prison open. Like you're an orderly in the unit, you're cleaning up the unit, or you're a chef, or not chef, a cook in the kitchen, or you're doing dishes in there, or you're doing laundry. All the jobs were to keep the prison open. And there was a lot of thinking about, like, some of these guys, if they were on home surveillance, they'd be fine. Why don't we have these people in actual work crews in the oil fields and in the coal mines and in uh the factories and the farms? Why don't we have them actually doing jobs that build America, like nations have done in the past with prisoners? They've had prison labor, and you'd say, well, oh, that's slavery, but it's also slavery when the whole point is just to keep the prison open. You may as well have it be something that contributes to building the country.
Yeah, it's actually similar. How should I say this? The homeless that are in the Salvation Army, they're getting paid $1 a day to be able to get fed and stay in a bed. And they're working like 8 hours a day, hanging clothes on hangers for those Salvation Army outlets. So they're doing the similar thing to homelessness as they're doing to you as being a prisoner. So a
Right.
lot of people don't know about that, but it's true. Um, okay, so you got through it. You got to 6 months, and why are you out talking to us right now?
Yeah. So I was convicted. I guess first we should well, in a second we'll talk about the trial, but I was convicted on a felony and 4 out of the 5 misdemeanors they charged me with. The misdemeanors were all like parading and picketing, entering restricted grounds, disorderly conduct, entering the Rayburn room of the Capitol. That was the one I got off on, but apparently that's a special room in the Capitol that gets its own misdemeanor charge.
I got to ask you a quick question. You got a misdemeanor for picketing?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
picketing.
maybe you got a charge against you for protesting?
Yeah, you would think that's First Amendment, right?
Right. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so anyways, the felony was obstruction of an official proceeding. That was the one we really tried fighting in the trial, and the one that eventually I got convicted on. But there's always been a question about that very vague law. And the Fisher case, Fisher v. United States, it's a police officer named Fisher who was arrested for protesting on January 6th. They hit him with a ton of charges. One of those is the obstruction. Now, the reason this charge is significant is because it has a 20-year maximum, the obstruction of an official proceeding, maximum of 20 years. And they're using that in 2 of Trump's 4 cases. I guess one being the Florida case, which now sounds like it's basically thrown out. But that was my charge, was felony obstruction. They said that I had a corrupt intent and that I knowingly and corruptly stopped the certification of the 2020 election.
Wow.
So that charge was just, they heard oral arguments in the Supreme Court last month, and we put in a motion for release pending appeal for my specific case. We put in that motion before I reported to prison. First of all, we said, hey, he should be out to celebrate the holidays with his family and then report. He's been out for 3 years already. And the DOJ fought that. They sent a Newsweek article about me saying Capitol rioters' prison sentence brings him closer to Trump. And they said, well, leaving him out, that would only embolden him and the conspiracy theories that he's spreading. And they talked all about, my tweets and everything.
Right.
So,
You're speaking facts and they're calling it conspiracy theory. They do that to
right. And they say it's a
discount the
danger to
anons all the time.
democracy.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I overtalked you. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I overtalked you. They said it was a, they said, it was a threat to democracy, what I was doing, whatever. So we put in that motion for release pending appeal. My judge denied it, saying that we had no valid legal argument. Well, then when the Fisher case came up to the Supreme Court, we sent in that exact same motion. We said, of course we have a valid legal argument because the Supreme Court's looking at it. And the judge agreed, but he said, I'm going to release you on appeal, but still just on the misdemeanors you were convicted of, I want you to serve at least 6 months in prison before I release you. So in February or January, he granted the release pending appeal, but he granted it for May 2nd. He said, even on the now the DOJ wanted me to continue. They said, even if the felony gets overturned, then he should still do 19 months in prison, even though that's above the sentencing guidelines. His conduct was so egregious.
Wow.
So the DOJ really doesn't like me, but the judge gave that ruling, and here we are now. So he had me serve 6 months because even if the felony gets thrown out, he would still have me do at least 6 months on the misdemeanors, and I could do more because the misdemeanors, I guess, have a sentencing guideline of 6 to 12 months. But the judge said, well, I varied downwards when they wanted 37 months. They wanted 37 months when they initially convicted me. And he varied downwards to 19. He said, with everything as it is, I really don't see why I would vary upwards instead of downwards, which I did earlier. So if the felony gets thrown out, we're going to hear probably in June what the Supreme Court does with the felony. If it gets thrown out, then I go to resentencing with my judge. And if it doesn't get thrown out, then I go and I finish my 19-month prison sentence.
You have a 19-month prison sentence?
Yeah.
And when you said the DOJ doesn't like you, I think DOJ doesn't like any Trump supporter. You know what I mean?
That's right.
It certainly seems that way from evidence. But boy, you're right. There's just so much using people like you and what happened to you as an example to put fear into people. And I want to say to people, if we do it in numbers, if we get out on the street, if we fight for people, if we say things, if we work as units, when people get attacked, if we go as a group and protect these people, we the people can bring this back and we can win our country back. But if you sit and you watch and you just listen to us talk about the injustices, and you're like, that's terrible, and you go back to your full-time job, they're going to be burning down your house someday. You know what I mean? I'm a little hyperbolic on that, but I'm trying to get people to get active to help people like you, Alex, and be picketing of this crime. Because has anybody protested because of what happened to you personally?
Well, I mean, there have been some protests in DC and some other places. They've been pretty small protests. Nothing like the hostages. We talk about the hostages in Israel a lot. Fox News, that's all they talk about. We have hostages right here in America, hundreds of them, and there's no talk about that, but we're worried about hostages in Israel.
Political prisoners. I think there was one guy that was sentenced to 19 years. I don't know if that was a Proud Boy. I can't remember who it was, but I heard of a 19-year sentence, and his last thing he said before he went to prison was that he's a political prisoner. Do you think that we're all praying, those of us that want to so-called drain the swamp, as President Trump has been saying for a long time, we all want to, how should I say it? Do you think President Trump's going to get elected?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the only way to save the country.
And the only way to save you guys.
Absolutely.
Because do you think he'll pardon everybody?
Yeah, I think he'll pardon just about everybody.
I
I mean,
agree.
Ray Epps, they ended up hitting Ray Epps with a misdemeanor. I don't think he should get a pardon on that. I think he should be charged fully with a real DOJ that actually investigates his crimes.
Yeah, well, Epps has got a background with the FBI. The FBI, when it had a Senate hearing, said that they'll acknowledge that one agent was there, but they won't say how many. And then they can, when the Congress people or the senators are questioning them, then they can just be like, well, we can't answer that question. And then they pass. It's just
I think
absolutely
it was
amazing. I mean, you can't, it's so obvious now what's going on that, I mean, we got 320 million people in the country, right? 330 million, maybe. You know, you wonder how many people are just sheep, just doing their day, not realizing, you know, what we're talking about, the seriousness, the threat that's happening to our country. What's your point of view on our future as a country?
Well, I think Clay Higgins had an interview with Tucker Carlson where he said, I think I've got the right guy, Clay Higgins, former police officer. He said, I support the thin blue line, including the FBI. He said, but from classified info that we have seen as members of Congress, he said there were at least 200 federal agitators on January 6th there entrapping people. He said that's a very conservative estimate.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I saw a number of white vans at on the I guess let me think, the west side. So the south side's towards the mall, right, of the Capitol, and the north side's on the other side, right?
that sounds right.
Yeah, I'll just say the opposite side of the Capitol from the mall. I saw images of white vans pulling up and people dressed as Trump supporters getting out of them and going towards the Capitol. And
Right.
those white vans, I was always suspicious of them all the time. I was walking around DC because they're all government vehicles, tinted windows. And I was like, there's that white van again. And those were the same vans that they were using to enter or have these people get out dressed as Trump supporters. And, you know, how many Trump supporters are inside government white vans, right? I mean,
Right.
come on now. So you potentially still could be going back to prison after the Supreme Court decision. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, that's correct. If the Supreme Court rules in my favor, then my felony will almost certainly be thrown out. And if they don't rule in my favor, then I go back and finish the 19-month sentence. Now, there I'll have good time credits built up and everything. First Step Act. Thank you, President Trump, for that. Everyone in prison, all they talk about is the First Step Act and how Trump really helped them out with that.
Mhm.
Because, you know, they're getting out to see their families. I knew one guy who was down 20 years for crack under Joe Biden's drug law, 20 years straight for $5,000 worth of crack. And he has a daughter who's like 22 years old. He says he hasn't seen her since she was 1 or 2 years old.
Wow.
And he was getting out a couple years early to be able to see her. He's a great guy, not going to be in any more trouble. And you know, so, but you know, that's a bit of a sidebar, if you will.
Not
Yeah, the
really. I don't see it as a sidebar
well,
because I mean, what did Biden do with the
right.
three strikes law? It put a
Yeah.
lot of people, especially in urban communities, in jail, and President Trump reversed that too.
Well, and everybody in there knew what I was in there for, you know, and nobody had an issue with me.
Right.
You know, there was, you know, some of the I guess some of the pedophiles for some reason, like Joe Biden or whatever, a couple of them, but even a lot of
Wait a
them.
minute, hang on. Did you just say some of the pedophiles like Joe Biden? Did you have what you
Yeah,
just said?
yeah, and I guess birds of a feather flock together. Joe Biden likes kids. I don't know
You
if you
can't
knew.
write this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just so surreal. So go
one
ahead.
of
After
them
the pedophiles that like Joe Biden, go ahead.
One of them had a tattoo of the GOP elephant in crosshairs.
The pedophile?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Isn't
he
that
was a
telling?
unit over from me.
Okay, I mean, yeah, you want to laugh, but it's just so sad and it's so
Right.
disgusting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so,
Sorry.
no, but yeah, that's the long answer to your question is, yeah, I finished my 19-month sentence. It'd be like a few more months in prison, then a few more months halfway house. Obviously, the goal is to not have that happen and have that felony charge. I mean, I knew some other J6ers in there as well. One was in the same unit as me, and he got 37 months. He took a plea deal for assault. He didn't assault anyone, but he was facing 29 years. So
That's what they do. That's
so
what they do.
37 months sounded, didn't sound great, but it sounded better than, he was a 56-year-old electrician from Chicago, and, they're trying to throw him in prison till he's 70 something.
Unbelievable.
So,
Yeah, that's a
but that
that
obstruction charge, if that gets thrown out, then I think a lot of these people who took plea deals can say, look, I was looking at 29 years. Now I'm looking at 9 years because this obstruction charge was bogus. And I think they should renegotiate their plea deals or get the hell out of the deals and take it to the DOJ, because the DOJ has lost so much credibility through all of this.
and the FBI
Yeah.
and most likely the CIA.
Hmm.
They've all lost credibility. And that's what the DAs do. They play that. If they've got a charge that they want to make sure they get you on, they do a greater charge that's fabricated. So it forces you to plea out and take the charge. And the DA gets a better reputation for convictions. So it's throughout our entire system, and the thing with them persecuting President Trump and going after him, trying to stop him from stopping us from being able to vote for him, is a tactic that is historic. You know what I mean? We are under tyranny right now. Some people are just blind sheep that are just going along, not realizing what's going on. And then people like us are like, you especially see firsthand of I guess it's like a kind of the Biden crime family, but just how our government has been. It's a banana republic, like you said. I mean, we're dealing with that right now. I mean, the private companies that do the social media, they got constitutional rights to stop us from being able to speak because it's a private company. But I think that there's a blessing in the persecution because it's bringing people like you and I together, and a lot of people, like I'm a Christian. There's a lot of Christians that are like realizing there's a lot of persecution going on, and the awareness is getting. And with Elon Musk buying X, very exciting. I'm doing like 40 posts on X a day, and I haven't been taken down. They blocked my account 3 times. They got it reinstated really quickly by proving I'm a human, which always makes you kind of go, things that make you go, But so far, I'm testing the boundaries like I did on YouTube, which got me nailed, and no problems yet on X. So I'm excited. I think we've got an avenue for free speech at the moment, from what I can tell.
Yeah, and Elon brought back Alex Jones. He brought
Yep.
back Nick Fuentes.
Nick Fuentes.
Brought back Kanye, I believe. So, he wants a free speech platform, is what it seems. So,
Is what it
bravo
seems.
to him for doing that. I'm never gonna get Elon's chip in my brain. That
No.
stuff he's got going on. I'm never gonna buy an electric car from him. But I do appreciate what he's been doing with
You don't
Twitter.
like the Teslas?
I was banned from Twitter for a long time too, while I was fighting my case. And I was, tweeting out. My tweets were doing very well. I was still tweeting out about the election and about January 6th while I'm fighting my case, and the FBI gets me banned from Twitter. So I mean, talk about a First Amendment violation. The government censoring the person that they're prosecuting. So yeah, I'm very grateful to be back on Twitter. I was unbanned actually during my trial, so I was able to come back and announce the results of my trial and my sentencing after that.
And President Trump can relate to you by the gag orders and everything that's going on, trying to stop him from speaking of the persecution that he's under with the whole Stormy Daniels thing. Stormy Daniels is upset that she saw President Trump in his underwear. She's a porn star. I mean, does anybody see what's going on? All right. Yeah. So what do you predict for the future, and summarize your point of view on our current state of affairs in our country? What do you think?
So I've always been an optimist, and I can't change my nature. Naturally, I'm an optimist. I believe that Trump is going to get back in office. We have to swamp them with votes, all kinds of votes, early votes during the election, after the election, which I know isn't legal, but Democrats do it. So if Democrats are doing it, then Republicans need to match them with everything we got this election 2024. I'm a little worried about Republicans in Congress It seems like enough of them, not nearly enough of them put America first. I think that the Trump endorsement is the most powerful endorsement in the history of politics. So he's going to have to really decide to endorse the right people for 2024. Uh, my concern is that Republicans have the House now. They have the power of the purse, and they're doing nothing with it. We're still sending all this money to Ukraine, to Israel. We're sending it to Israel and to Iran. So we're funding both sides of the war. And in a sense, we're funding both sides with Ukraine because we gave Russia a pipeline. So
No, wait,
I'm
hang on
not,
a second.
not
How
very,
are we funding Iran?
Joe Biden is sending money to Iran,
How much money?
like hundreds of millions of dollars. He's sending money to Iran, and they're using it with Hamas to attack Israel. I mean, this isn't my specialty, the foreign affairs and everything, but I can tell you, you look into it, we're funding both sides of the
Oh,
war.
trust me. Once I hear something that I'm hearing for the first time, some people are probably rolling their eyes right now in this interview, but and some people are like shocked. I'm one of those shocked ones because I'm always like a sponge. So I'm going to definitely investigate the money that's being sent to Iran. It's the first time I've heard of that. Um, Alex, man, we appreciate you. There are very few people I call victims, and you are a victim of our government. And I'm going to pray for you, and I want you to stay in touch with us, on updates. We are all going to be praying like you are that President Trump gets in, because I do believe, like you do, that these political prisoners, which you have been and might still be, need to be released, obviously. I appreciate you. And tell us, how do we get in touch with you and follow you on X and everything? Why don't you give everybody your account names so they can dial into you?
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you having me on. We need to do a lot more work together in the future. I know you're a great patriot.
Well,
I
thank
watch
you.
like I said, you were like the best YouTuber when we were all wondering why DC was under martial law, what was happening with all these, buses, and they're throwing up fences and everything. And I was watching your YouTube quite a bit. So I am a fan. For people who want to follow me, you can go to at not Alex Sheppard on Twitter. That's NOTALEXSHEPPARD. I was not Alex Sheppard because I was trying to avoid the censorship that Alex Sheppard was getting. Uh,
Interesting.
and it worked until I
It
was,
worked.
it worked for
Maybe
like,
I should try not MustangMedic. Maybe I should try that.
so
Go ahead.
anyways,
So what else? How
yeah,
else? What
not
other
Alex
accounts do you
Sheppard.
have? I know you got an X account.
Yeah, and I'm on Rumble too. And those are the two things. I mean, I'm going to be doing a lot on X. I'm going to be in the media quite a bit. If anyone knows anyone with other shows like this, I'm trying to get the word out about January 6th. I'm willing to testify in front of Congress because Democrats called all these fake witnesses about January 6th to testify in the fake January 6th committee. So, I want to talk to the Republicans if they really want to get to the truth of it. Please continue to, I was in with other January 6th guys, and we were getting so many great letters from Christians across the country.
That's
And
awesome.
I even got one from Taiwan. I got one from Norway. So, there are a lot of people supporting, and we know that they are. And I just hope you continue to do it, especially for those who are locked up, and especially for those who, have died as a result of Capitol Police and of the political persecution of the DOJ. David Homel just took his life yesterday, well, he did it last month, but the news came out yesterday. It's the fifth January 6er to commit suicide over all of this political persecution. So, I've been saying I'm not suicidal. If I die, it was Hillary Clinton. But that being said, thank you for having me. And yeah, we're going to get the truth out.
Now, did you say your X account? I don't know if I heard that.
Yeah, not Alex Sheppard on X.
And what about list them off, and I'll also put them in a link. Guys, I'm going to have a link to his accounts within the description of this interview. But okay, you got Rumble,
Rumble,
X.
Alex Sheppard. Rumble is Alex Sheppard, and X. And then I've been on Telegram and Getter and Truth. I haven't really been using them as much, but same thing. You'll find me there at Alex Sheppard.
Okay. So again, I'm going to put those links in there so you guys can follow Alex's progress and hopefully finding freedom, free at last. And we appreciate you. You, of course, are a patriot. And we just want justice. And I appreciate you sharing your experience. It's Alex Sheppard, and AKA MustangMedic. Well, not also known as, but I'm MustangMedic. This is Alex. Follow him, support all our J6ers that are going through this right now, that are still in prison. And we need justice. Thank you for watching MustangMedic. Alex, we appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. The time flew.
Yeah, I know, didn't it? Thank you for being here. Talk to you again soon, guys. And we need to unite for freedom. Thank you for watching. I left this segment at the end because the early viewers don't want to hear it. But if you're here still, then you care about what I'm doing and you followed through on the whole video and we're interested. If you want me to continue to do this, I do need donations. I am at a point where I'm looking at possibly June not being able to be online anymore. And YouTube, even with our 160,000 or 158,000 subscribers, we're showing 200 views. We get more hate and likes than sometimes than we do views. So they're obviously suppressing the view count. I mean, Roger Stone, under 1,000, Sheriff Mark Lamb, under 1,000, and it's getting to a point that it's ridiculous. It appears that we are still monetized, but I don't believe they want me to continue. Very active on X. The account is MustangMedic with the letter X behind it, MustangMedic X. So I invite you to go over to X, aka Twitter. Follow us there. I can say whatever I want, and the response is very, very good. We're growing very quickly here. Not here. We're growing very quickly on X, and we're losing about 6 subscribers a day. So they're messing with me. So I hope you choose to support this cause. If you click on realmustangmedic.com, you can donate there. And we have a PayPal account now. And I ask you, if you do, send it as a gift. Don't send it as a purchase. I'm still working on that link. I appreciate you. Thank you for watching this video. And if you're still here, thank you for caring. God bless.